Welcome back to the Flip Flop Flipper YouTube channel. Today, we're gonna give you some 25 years worth of guidance, insight into how to renovate different types of real estate. And we're gonna go through light, moderate, and heavy renovations across the whole wide range of different types of real estate that we invest in regularly and that you are gonna wanna invest in as you become a real estate investor. And so hopefully this channel and this YouTube video today is going to give you tons of value. And if that's true, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us, guys, as we're pushing towards 5,000 members in our YouTube channel and our YouTube community. We do this YouTube stuff so that we can partner with you guys, so that we can do more deals and we can expand our business through like-minded partnerships with people that we'll meet through the YouTube channel. That's what we're asking from. We want to partner with you. If you've got a great deal, subscribe to the channel. And then if you really want to get a hold of us, send me an email at theflipflopflipperpr@gmail.com and let's talk about how we can do something together. So when you're going to renovate a house, you give it to you like you're just starting out and you've never done this before. If you're buying houses, let's say we're going to buy houses for rent. There's going to be one way to renovate that house versus if you're going to buy houses for sale, for resale, there's going to be another way to renovate that house. And then we'll give you a third one, which will be if you want to renovate this house for Airbnb. And then we'll get into if you're going to buy a building that's maybe a value add building, what that could look like and what those renovations look like. And last, we'll talk about hospitality, because hospitality is something that's near and dear to our heart as we've started to invest heavily in the hospitality field once we came to the island of Puerto Rico. So let's get into it. You buy a single family house and you're trying to figure out what to do with the house, how to renovate it, and what it should cost you. And when you are looking at the house, you're gonna probably be able to quickly see if it's a light rehab, a moderate rehab, or a big rehab. So when you're just first starting out, you guys probably, doing your first couple, you wanna stick to the moderate and light rehabs. Why? Because they're gonna be significantly easier. There's going to be less room for your contractor to take advantage of you. So if you can find something that's a good enough deal that you can buy that doesn't need a whole lot of work, that's what you wanna go for when you're first starting out. Now, are there bigger profits in the stuff that have the bigger rehabs? Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe that the more work something needs, that's generally speaking going to mean that you get to make more profit. So when I'm looking at houses, and I'm gonna buy a house that has a light rehab, I can pay a higher price for that house because I know I don't have to put as much money in the rehab and I'll still be able to make my money on the top. So let's give you life examples of that. So let's say the house is worth $300,000 and it needs a light rehab. Now I might be able to pay 75% of the $300,000 for this house because I know that I only have to put a light rehab, maybe $10,000 or $15,000 more into that. So when you're buying that house that needs a light rehab and it's a $300,000 after repaired value, you might be able to pay all the way up to 65% of the after repaired value, which would be $195,000, and still put $10,000 to $15,000 worth of repairs in it. So you're all in for $210,000 and you sell it for $300,000. There's $90,000 in spread there. That doesn't mean you're gonna make $90,000 because you're gonna have some costs, but there's other videos about that. But that does mean that you're gonna be able to make a profit. You're gonna be able to make a nice return on your investment. So that would be one way that you would look at properties. Let's say it's a moderate property, and now instead of needing $10,000 to $15,000, it needs $15,000 to $30,000. And you're gonna wanna not pay 65% for it anymore. You take the same house and if it needs, let's say it needs that moderate rehab, so that's gonna be 15 or on the high end, 30, something between $15,000 and $30,000 for your moderate rehab. You're gonna probably only be able to pay 55 or 60% of the after repaired value. So if you go to the full highest that you could go, maybe 60% plus then a $30,000 rehab, you're again in at that $210,000 range. So you just have to lower what you're going to pay for it depending on what the renovation is. Hopefully this is making sense to you guys because this is going to be key for you to be able to make a profit. You're going to make the same profit on that moderate renovation. So if I'm doing the bigger renovation, I might try to buy it a little less, but probably if I could be all in on this house, this fictional house for $210,000 and sell it for $300,000, I would do the deal whether it was a light or a moderate rehab. Now, if it was a heavy rehab, I'm going to drastically reduce. So a heavy rehab is going to be that $30,000 and up or $35,000 and higher. And let's go like $35,000 to $70,000. That's a pretty heavy rehab on a $300,000 house. And so I won't just like drop it down another 5%. I might need to buy that house at 50% of its after repair value. So 150 grand plus 70, that puts me in at 220. So I might even have to go down to 45%. But you get the picture, because your heavy rehab could be between 35 and 70 or 35 and 100. So if you're doing the math, you just subtract off your renovation costs and buy it for a deeper discount. I hope this is making sense. It's going to be key to you making money in this real estate investment game. So you should make more money as you do more work. So when you're negotiating these sales, if it's a light rehab, you can pay a little bit more. Moderate, you pay a little bit less. And then if it's a big rehab, you want to get a pretty steep discount, because there's nobody really out there that's buying those really big rehabs. At least there's not nearly as many people. And if you're just starting out, again, stay to the moderate, stay to the light rehabs when you're just learning this stuff, until you have a really good relationship with your contractor and you really understand what it means. Because a heavy rehab can easily go from, you're thinking it's $40,000, $45,000, $50,000, and it turns into $100,000, $110,000, $120,000 because you haven't ever done it before and you don't know what you're doing. So just be really careful of that. You get your teeth cut on the light and the moderate rehabs. So before we move on, this is probably where most of you who are just starting out are going to start, right? Like, so we've been doing this investment real estate stuff for 25 years, and we've graduated onto much, much bigger projects. You've seen some of them on the channel. I mean, we're doing a single family house right now that's close to a $500,000 renovation. That's beyond heavy renovation. That's like, we're basically rebuilding a brand new house out of what was a 4-family house. And so we've taken it down to the foundation basically, and we're rebuilding it. And I promise you, this isn't the one that you want to do as your first deal ever. Okay guys, so all of that I just said with the houses, and we're going to stay with houses for a little while. I'm renovating those houses at those light, moderate, and heavy rehabs, either for resale or for rent. It doesn't really matter, but I want to talk a little bit about how I would renovate them differently. So if I'm going to renovate a house for sale, there are things that I can do differently than if I'm going to renovate a house for rent. And I'll run through a few little bullets of what those things are. But for instance, if I'm going to renovate a house for rent, I probably don't renovate with granite countertops. I probably don't go as high end with the kitchen as I would with the house that I'm going to sell. Also, in another way that I would renovate a house for rent, I would probably tile from the front door all the way throughout the house, because I want to make my rental properties bulletproof. I want them to be built like a tank, right? I want the tenants to be able to do as little damage as possible, because the tenants are going to screw stuff up. That's the name of the game. People are going to move into the house. They're going to be renters. They're not going to be owners. They're not going to take as good a care of it as people who would own the house. So I want to make it like it's a tank that's indestructible. If I'm going to sell the house, I might, and I often do, renovate with tile or exotic flooring throughout the living space of the house, and in the bedrooms I'll use a nice carpet, because carpet is a lot more comfortable in your bedrooms, and it's more comfortable to stand on. It can look very pretty, but carpet gets absolutely destroyed by renters, so I really don't like to put carpet inside of houses that I'm going to rent. So we can save some money on flooring when we're putting carpet in there sometimes, and it can look even better, I think, than the tile that we use. But you go with the tile on the rents because it just makes it indestructible. I hope this is making sense, guys. Give me a like on this video if you like what I'm saying, and leave a comment. Tell me, what do you think about this stuff so far, and we'll keep going. So some of the other differences that I would do. So for a rental house, tile throughout. We're going to do standard kitchens. They're not going to be the super fancy stuff. I'm usually never going to put granite in, although sometimes if the kitchen is small enough and the granite is only a few $100s more because it's such a small piece, I will. But generally speaking, I'm using the Formica countertops, and I'm using the Home Depot kitchens, and I'm using a Home Depot tile, and I'm tiling it from the front door to the back door when I am building out for a rental property. I want it to look really nice, and it will look really nice at the end of the renovation, and I want it to last, and I want to be able to replace it fairly inexpensively. So I'm not going to put in the Italian kitchen on something I'm going to rent, and I'm not going to put in the luxurious stone countertops on something that I'm going to rent, because they will get destroyed by the tenants over the years, and it's cheaper for you in the long run to do the Home Depot style kitchen with the Formica countertops twice over the course of the time that you have the house, as opposed to putting in the more luxurious stuff that we would do on other kinds of houses. So hopefully that makes sense. What else? We're going to put ceiling fans in every room. pretty much in both cases, whether I'm going to sell it or if I'm going to rent it. I have found, and I live in warm climates, either in Florida or in Puerto Rico. I hate it when it's hot. You can see I'm kind of sweating in here today, and I've got the AC blowing on me, but these lights make it super hot. So I like to have ceiling fans. People that rent from us like to have ceiling fans. People who buy houses from you will enjoy that you put the ceiling fan in there. It does cost you slightly more. Like, you know, maybe you have to spend an extra 50 or 60 bucks to put the ceiling fan with the light in there as opposed to just putting a dome light, but that's okay. It's worth it. You'll get the value out of it. What else, guys? We're gonna put in a rental property, we're gonna put the standard windows that will pass an FHA inspection or a Section 8 inspection. We're probably doing that for most moderately priced houses as well. It will be, as you step up into the valuation of the house, you're gonna have to go nicer with some of this stuff, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. So here, also for a rental property, I typically will build my kitchen without having a dishwasher. So if we're gonna rent the house, we're generally not gonna supply a dishwasher because that's just one more appliance that then the landlord, you, are responsible for when the tenant breaks the damn thing. So we just build the kitchens for houses that we're gonna keep for rent. Most of the time, again, unless they're higher end stuff, we don't have the dishwasher in there. We go back and forth on whether or not we'll have garbage disposals or not. Usually we like to land on having a garbage disposal, but again, that's something that as a landlord, they break it, you fix it. So keep that in mind. I do not supply washers and dryers for tenants. We will build out a spot for a laundry room, but I'm not gonna buy the washer and the dryer. And in fact, I suggest that when your tenants bring them in and then they move out and they say, hey, you can keep the washer and dryer, move those damn things out of there, because once you own it, once the next tenant moves in there and you've got a washer and dryer there for them and it breaks, they break it, you fix it. This is a problem. So this is just stuff that we've learned over years of experience. Supply the washer and dryer space. Let the tenants bring their own appliances. You do have to, as a landlord, generally you're always going to have to supply a stove, whether you're renting or selling. You always have to supply a stove. Most of the time we are also supplying a refrigerator, whether we're renting or selling. Certainly if we're selling, we put the refrigerator in there because it makes the kitchen look complete. You want the kitchens to look absolutely badass beautiful. That's what sells a house, kitchens and bathrooms. So we focus on that. So we are always supplying, whether we rent, we'll usually put in refrigerator, but we always supply the refrigerator when we're selling it because it makes the kitchen look more complete and it makes it look beautiful. So ACs in Florida, you have to have central air and heat. That's like a must. Nobody buys a house that doesn't have AC and heat, believe it or not. Now in Puerto Rico, you can sell houses with neither. You don't have to have heat, you don't have to have AC, and it's not a requirement from the bank. In Florida, it is a requirement from the bank that you provide heat. And generally speaking, nobody's buying a house in Florida that doesn't have central air conditionings. So there's a difference here in Florida, the way that we renovate a house from how we would renovate a house in Puerto Rico. I don't know very many people at all, except in the super high-end stuff, that use anything other than these ACs that I have behind me, these split units. This is what gets done in Puerto Rico, and they work fabulously well, but in Florida, it's almost exclusively central air and heat. So we have to put that in. You know, if you buy a house that needs a moderate rehab or it needs a light rehab, you probably already have a central air AC that works, right? And you hopefully might already have a hot water heater that works. But if they don't, in whatever renovation level you're doing, you've always got to supply hot water. And in Florida, you've always got to have central air and heat. In Puerto Rico, when we are selling houses, we will often put in these split units, especially in anything above like just the entry-level FHA house. So if we're talking about a $150,000 house or up, we'll have at least a few of these split unit ACs when we're renovating a house here in Puerto Rico. Use what industry standard is in the area that you're in. So in Florida, it's a guillotine window. It slides up and down. That's what most of the people in the States are used to, and that's what we're used to in the state of Florida, so that's what we use. Versus come to Puerto Rico, almost no one uses the guillotine window. That's very uncommon. The common window is, again, back over my shoulder here. They call them Miami windows, and they can either be louvered glass or they can just be metal louvered windows that you can't see through at all. They twist open and you have the open air. You can see when they're open.
They're called security windows.
They're called security windows. Adon says they're called security windows.
It's all metal. Miami
means all metal. These glass ones are security. I did not know that. Now you know it, and now I know it too. Thanks, Adon. Another good one. When I'm renovating for rent, I don't do very much at all when it comes to landscaping. And when I'm renovating to sell, I still don't do a ton of landscaping, but I do more. I do slightly more because I want to have that aesthetic, right? And so here's the thing about landscaping. Whether you sell it to someone or you rent it to someone, your landscaping is very likely going to die. So I don't spend a ton of money on it in either case, but I do spend more when I'm going to sell than I do when I'm going to rent. Renters just, they will flat out not take care of whatever landscaping you put in. So you're just throwing your money away. I also would say that I try to have my tenants take care of the lawns. And then when they don't, I go back to them and I say that I'm going to send my lawn guy over and he's going to take care of the lawn and we're going to charge you for it each month. So this is something where we've seen again and again that tenants will just let the grass in Florida go for 2 or 3 weeks and it'll get waist high, and then we'll start to get things from code enforcement and stuff like that. You have less of a problem in Puerto Rico with this than you do in the States because there's really not the same kind of code enforcement issues going on in Puerto Rico. I think that's an infrastructure deal. But anyways, the point is your tenants aren't going to take care of stuff. I try to put it on them. I want them to take care of the yards. I want them to cut the grass. When they don't, then I send them a letter, and then eventually I take it over and charge them back. So I think that covers if I'm going to renovate a house for sale or if I'm going to renovate a house for long-term rents. That's what we've been talking about here. Let's jump into the same house. We're going to renovate it now for Airbnb. First thing that I want to tell you about that is that the $300,000 house that's still going to need that light, that moderate, or that heavy renovation, I'm not going to value that house for more than $300,000, even though my rents are going to be significantly more on Airbnb. I'm always going to buy off of what long-term rents look like and what long-term rents will make the property worth. Why do I say that? Well, the simple reason is that you're not assured of anything in this world. And there's one thing is for sure, we don't know for sure that the Airbnb is going to work from place to place. And so to buy something with the idea that you're going to absolutely get this massive Airbnb revenue, things can change. For instance, in Orlando, Florida, in Orange County, Florida, where I live, they changed the code when it comes to Airbnbs, and now they will not allow you to put a house on Airbnb that you don't live in. So you have to live in the house in order to rent a room on Airbnb, or you're outside of the rules of Orlando. So if you bought something to just have on Airbnb and you paid more for it because you thought it was going to be worth more, because you were backing into that number, that return on investment, which we're going to talk about again later in this video, you get screwed. So you have to buy based on something that's known, tried, and true, which is long-term rents. Long-term rents are a great basis for buying single-family houses or even small multifamily houses or even multi-family houses. Long-term rents, not Airbnbs. If you get that Airbnb revenue, great, that should be a bonus for you as the real estate investor. But guys, I wouldn't buy basing my revenues off of the pie in the sky Airbnb stuff. All right, so now let's talk about it. Let's assume that we are going to renovate a house to put on Airbnb, and I still want you to buy the house based on the long-term rental number. But if you are going to put it on Airbnb, you're going to renovate it differently. You're still going to want to renovate it so that it's kind of like a tank. I wouldn't put carpet and stuff like that in there. What I would suggest is that you're now going to renovate it to be a tank, but it's going to simply be a nicer tank. So if I'm going to put it on Airbnb, I probably would consider putting in the high-end kitchen, going to the Italian kitchen, getting the beautiful stone countertops, having the island in the kitchen, doing some extras that make it pop, that make it just say, wow. I do things also differently with like our paint jobs. So if I'm doing long-term rents, I might just paint the house white. But if I'm going to do Airbnb, there's going to be a little bit more design, a little bit more intention. Maybe even we're doing murals and we're doing things like that so that we can provide Instagrammable things and get people excited about when they see the pictures of your house and you want them to come to Airbnb. It has been our experience when we are putting things on Airbnb, the nicer that we can make them, the higher nightly rate that we can get. So you're going to renovate for Airbnb, different. It's going to cost you more, right? So you're still going to have that light, that medium, and that moderate, but you're going to have more expense just because you're putting it on Airbnb, because you're going to do a better paint job. You're maybe going to do a mural. You're going to do things like higher end kitchens and maybe higher end bathrooms. But the biggest expense that you're going to have going on to Airbnb, and the one that you need to be thinking about, is what they call FF&E. So that's furniture, fixtures, and I don't know what the E stands for. Someone put in the comment whatever the hell it is. Somebody knows what it stands for. But that's, you know, so that's furnishing it, right? So you're gonna have to put in couches and beds and tables and lights, and you're gonna have plates and knives and forks and all of that stuff that goes into an Airbnb. All of the list of stuff that my wife knows. She's really good at this stuff, and I don't pay too much attention to it. But it's going to cost you, you know, for a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house here in Puerto Rico, when we put something on Airbnb, we can furnish that place out pretty nice for around $7,000 or $8,000. If you're doing something similar in the States, it's going to be around the same. So think about that. For every 2 or 3 bedrooms, you're going to spend $8,000 to $10,000 to furnish that house, and buy yourself like really, really comfortable mattresses. You guys, you'll get the best reviews because you want to give people a great night's sleep. So anyways, that's how you're going to renovate Airbnb houses differently than just a normal long-term rent. All right, guys, so just let's recap it really quick. If you've missed any of this, rewind the video, watch it again. Don't forget to give us a like and leave me a comment. Tell me, what do you think about this kind of content? Is this something that you guys are interested in? We really, on this channel, are looking to help you become a real estate investor. And so I believe this is valuable information. This is stuff that we've gleaned over a 25-year period of time. We've sort of picked this up by trial by error. We've done all of the things. We've done all of these types of renovations. And so real quick, just to run through, if I'm going to renovate a house for long-term rents, I'm tiling it from front to back, ceiling fans in every room, Home Depot kitchens and bathrooms, nothing super special, but everything will look nice. We paint it white or we paint it off-white, all one color. So we make it really easy to go from house to house that way. Standardized everything. Try and make those long-term rentals as close to that indestructible tank as you can. So then changing that, if I'm going to renovate the same house, but I'm going to renovate it for sale, I'm going to spend a little bit more money on the kitchens and bathrooms. I'm still going to tile or do some kind of luxury flooring in the common areas, but then I might try to save a little bit of money by having a really nice looking carpet. And I do that because I think that homeowners like to have carpet in their bedrooms because it's more comfortable. Tile beats you up, but tile's indestructible. So that's why I make that change for when I'm selling something versus when I'm renting something. I'm going to spend slightly more money on landscaping for a house that I'm going to sell rather than or opposed to a house I'm going to keep. I really don't think putting my money into a house that I'm going to keep as a rental property is a good investment of my money. The stuff is going to die, and it's going to die either way. Most likely if you sell it, and unless you sell it to someone who likes to work in the yard, they're either going to replace all of your landscaping because it's not to their taste, or they're just going to let it die. But it still makes it pop when you do it, even if it's not the kind of landscaping that they want. When you're selling it, you do that slightly more in the landscaping. And then what we would do if we're going to renovate for the short-term rental market, for the Airbnb market, again, even though it's a rental property now, we're still going to probably do the higher-end kitchens and bathrooms, but we are going to try and do things where we are absolutely building that tank, right? Because even though it's on Airbnb and they're going to be in and out, you're going to get to check on it all the time, and so you're going to be able to have really good maintenance on these things. You still want to build it like that tank so that it's indestructible, so that your nightly tenants don't wreck the place either. And it's amazing how quickly things can get wrecked. So you want to build things strong, you want to build things right, and you want to build things super nice. The other things that I would do that are different when I'm going to renovate for the nightly rental is, obviously we're going to pay to furnish it. And so that's a big expense, and you guys need to remember that one. But we're also going to paint it differently. So the inside and the outside, we're going to probably spend just a little bit of extra time and effort on it. We're going to have some accent walls. Maybe we're going to have a mural. We're going to try to create some Instagrammable spaces inside of the property, and that helps with the nightly rate. Generally speaking, when I'm renovating for the nightly rate, the nicer that I can do within reason, the better I'm going to do on that nightly rate. So if I have in a rental house just a white 12 by 18 tile and it's throughout the house, I might have something a little bit fancier. Instead of the Home Depot special, I go and I spend $2 or $3 a square foot on the floors instead of $1 or $1.50 on the floors. So there are just some little differences from long-term to short-term rentals. You want to make these short-term rentals pop in the pictures, and you want people to be excited about coming to stay with you. Yeah, so guys, the last part of my little recap, I want to remind you to buy the property always based off long-term rents. So don't let the sellers push you into this unless they can show you that the house has been on Airbnb for a couple years and you're looking at an actual track record, you buy on historical, long-term rental data. That's the safest, tried and true method to come to a valuation of what kind of return you can expect on your money. And then as a real estate investor, if you can do better than that, that should be the win for you. But don't let the sellers try and push you into this. Again, unless you're buying something that's been on Airbnb for a long time and they show you those Airbnb rates and you have to buy off of that. That's different. All right, so guys, we've gone through it. That's how you renovate a house. I hope that's valuable for it. Please, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Join the community as we're pushing to 5,000 members on our YouTube channel, and then we're gonna keep on going, but we're growing this YouTube channel so that we can do deals together. We wanna have a community of people that are bringing deals to the table and partnering with people, and we really want and encourage people to become entrepreneurial and to become real estate investors. It's our belief that it's a great life. Guys, you can't save your way to wealth. You need to invest, and real estate is the way to go. I believe that with all of my heart. Most of the people who are ever wealthy in life either make their money in real estate or store their wealth in real estate, and you should too. So subscribe to the channel, give us that thumbs up. Look for the next video that YouTube wants you to watch right here and click on that. And that's it. God bless, guys. Thanks a lot.